Let's make sure we're all streaming there. There we go. This stream's up now. Yeah, I'm gonna click record just in case something happens there. There we go. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to what we're calling the Licensing Playbook Live. Our company is InventRight. Stephen Key and myself co-founded the company about 26 years ago. Yeah, over 2.5 decades ago. That's how old we are. Um, so the topic today is unlock the confidence to contact companies. For those of you on video, raise your hand if you want to unlock the confidence to contact companies. Everybody wants that. Karina wants that. I think she already has that because she was a member of ours, but Serena, not Karina. I just called you Karina. Can you believe that? It's terrible. It's terrible.
Serena.
Yeah, so yeah, Dana knows her. So
Oh
we're
my
streaming
goodness.
every Wednesday at 5 Pacific, 6 Mountain, 7 Central, and 8 Eastern. And we enjoy doing these, and we hope that you guys do too. If it's your first time joining, welcome. My name is Andrew Krauss, as I said, and I co-founded InventRight with Stephen Key over 26 years ago to help inventors. Stephen's traveling today, so he won't be here, but Dana and Chad are here. Dana and Chad are part of our outreach team, as well as former InventRight members. And I know they're going to have a lot to share with you on this topic, as well as myself from seeing inventors struggling with getting up and running on the outreach for their inventions. If you are struggling with that, you're not the only one. Now, the beautiful thing about it is that you showed up for this and that you're you're thinking about trying. A lot of inventors, they will file patents, they'll make prototypes, and they just never really do it. They just avoid for years or decades. It's crazy. So that's why it's a very, very important topic tonight. So, this weekly webinar is your go-to guide for learning how to license product ideas to companies that are actively looking for innovation. Each week, we're going to bring real world strategies and the exact steps you need to get in front. That was the video doing that. That wasn't me. That was just a glitch with Zoom. Yeah. To get in front the
Sure.
front door of companies, you learn how to pitch with confidence, avoid common mistakes, and dramatically increase your chances of landing a licensing deal. Thanks for joining us live. If you're here on Zoom, feel free to ask your questions in the chat box or by digitally raising your hand if you can figure that out. I'll leave that a mystery so you can figure that out. If you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, which we have people on all those platforms, let me double check to make sure. Yeah, everybody's there, so cool. You can type your questions in the chat and I'll ask them on your behalf. We do want on this topic for you guys to participate quite a bit. We want to focus completely and totally on helping you unlock the confidence to contact companies. So when you ask questions in the chat, if they could be focused on that topic today, that's what we're going to focus on. Like, well, how do I get a provisional patent? Great. Maybe that's good for another session. We want to focus on reaching out to companies. Probably a lot of you are not doing that. Some of you did a little bit of it and then you didn't. Some of you have done a fair amount of it, but most of you are probably here because you want advice in that area. So today's topic again is unlock the confidence to contact companies. Have you been holding back from reaching out to companies? You're not alone. Many inventors struggle with hesitation or fear of rejection. We're going to get into some psychological stuff and also just factual stuff on things you may be fearful and why you don't have to be fearful. Or if you are fearful, it's valid, but think about it this way. We're going to really address a lot of things here. Dana Knowles and Chad Brislawn. I almost made it Dana Brislawn and Chad Knowles. I almost said that. And myself will show you how to approach an
Whatever.
outreach with confidence and leave with strategies you can put into action right away. Guys, let's not be uptight about this. Let's have fun. Let's be open. I want you to talk about your fears. I want you to talk about maybe a bad experience you've had. Sometimes I see inventors have an experience in a certain area of inventing. It's one experience with one company, and they're like, well, this is how it always is. And I listen, and I'm like, okay, that happened to you. That's not normal. That's not the typical thing. So, but if you had something happen to you that was concerned you or you're fearful of, share it. And we might say, yeah, that happens all the time, but here's how you deal with it. Or, that's actually not common. That's not really founded. That's not something you should be tremendously concerned about. So let's jump right in. Um, and start typing your questions on this topic, okay, guys? So fear of reaching out to companies. Let's start with Dana. Um, Dana, and we'll ask Chad too. Dana, back when you were a student, you talk a lot about when you were an InventRight student.
Mhm.
Let's just start there. Like, what were you fearful of? And now you're all day long, you're reaching out to companies. So talk a little bit about your journey, what you were fearful of, and what you overcame. Maybe don't cover everything because we're gonna cover that a lot in Q&A, but some of it.
Yeah, I think thanks Andrew, and welcome everybody. Glad to be here on another Wednesday evening. I think that I'm thinking back of when I first started reaching out to companies. The sell sheet was done, PPAs filed. I actually didn't have to have a demo video for my product because it was so simple. You could just get it from the sell sheet. So I was all prepared. I had research, had all the companies, had all their telephone numbers, and even the people I wanted to reach out to. I found them on LinkedIn. And then it was time for me to start reaching out. And I think the biggest fear that I had was that I was going to sound like an idiot.
Hmm.
They were going to ask me questions, and I was going to stumble and sound like I don't know what I'm talking about because I didn't feel like I knew what I was talking about. And so that was my biggest fear of sounding like an idiot. I mean, picking up the phone, I've said this before, picking up the phone isn't the fearful part because we pick up the phone to call each other, relatives, friends, whatever. It's getting that other person on the end of the line and then not knowing what to say or freezing up or being
Okay, so
just
let's get you're
sounding
gonna have to
bad.
go way back in the back recesses of your mind, Dana, because this has long since been a
It's
problem for you. Let's go into the deep recesses of Dana's mind right now, guys. That's
Oh,
what we're
that's a
gonna do.
scary place,
This
man.
is
You don't want to go
yeah, okay,
there.
all right, okay. Maybe just in this area, okay? We
Yeah,
won't
yeah,
That's a
okay,
whole different
okay.
webinar. That's a whole
Yeah,
different
that's a
webinar.
whole different webinar there. Yeah.
but if you had to dig down deep, you said you were afraid of sounding like an idiot.
Mhm,
Was that because that would make you feel bad and you didn't want to
mhm,
feel bad? Would it be that you would screw everything up and they would never talk to you again? Like, what
mhm.
was, if you had to think about it, and maybe some subconscious, and maybe you guys can type into the chat, like, what, looking like an idiot, what would happen if that happened? So, Dana, for you, what did that mean?
Well, that meant that they would hang up on me or laugh at me or call me
Mhm.
names or tell me I don't know what I'm talking about or and I want to, we all want to present ourselves in the best light. We all want to
Hmm.
be professional, but I just didn't have that confidence of being professional when I was speaking to companies. So it would basically make me feel bad. And that's a scary thing. It would hurt my feelings. And and I mean, that's the bottom line. There's no other way around it.
You just tapped into something really important we should talk about. She said it would make, it would hurt my feelings.
Hmm.
So being somewhat sensitive, being attuned to being creative and all that, when you're coming up with ideas, that's like as Stephen always says, or other co-founder, that's like a certain hat you wear, right? You can be that, you can be sensitive. But when you start to be, when you're a salesperson or you're reaching out to companies, uh, you really good salespeople aren't worried about their feelings. You need to put your feelings aside and not worry about your feelings being hurt. You can walk around the world like that in other contexts, but in this context, you need to toughen up, you know? And so Dana, anything that you can say on how to be tough? You're pretty tough.
I'm
You're
tough
you're
now.
you're
I was always tough. I'm a tough chick.
yeah, I
I'm
get
an
that.
old
Yeah.
biker chick, right? I'm an old biker chick, and I was always tough. And I don't didn't put take any crap from anybody, and yet I'm scared to pick up the phone and talk to somebody. So I'm going to tell you a little secret on how I got over that. A couple things, two things I did. One is I practiced on all the companies, and Chad will share this story too. I practiced on all the companies I didn't care about, the ones on the lowest totem pole, the ones that I didn't even want to get into, but they were on my list. maybe they weren't even a good fit, or maybe they were not a good, well, we never want to reach out to a company that's not a good, but maybe they weren't exactly a good fit. I sectioned the companies off into three sections: my target companies, then the middle companies, and then the bottom of the barrel companies. And I started practicing on those bottom of the barrel companies. And that's what I did first. But then what I would also do is when I would call them, I would even tell them I'm new at this.
Hmm.
Then that kind of lets them know that I'm new. And I might not say everything correctly because I kind of just let myself off the hook if I did mess up. And
Hmm.
that gave me enough confidence then to start picking up the phone because it was just easier for me to say to them, I'm new at this. And everybody, this is the thing, I was trying to tap into their feelings because every single person was new at something at some point and knows how difficult it is to
Hmm.
be new at something. So I was really trying to get them to be more empathetic. Is that the right word? Empathize with me? Is that
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
empathize? More
Yeah.
empathetic with me. Those are the two tricks I used to help me to get the courage to call companies. And
Hmm.
now I talk to CEOs of companies all the time and it's like second nature for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are the two tips I have on that subject, on that
Okay,
part.
so there's a couple people wrote in here. Brandon wrote in, for me, it's the feeling of
I
thinking,
wanted to touch on that because you were going to
yeah,
ask me, and he pulled those words right out of my head as far as what we were what
What
we were fearful of in the beginning.
yeah,
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but that like that he's word for word. I couldn't have
what
said
does
it
he
better
say?
myself. He says, for me, it's the feeling of thinking that you're prepared and then getting asked questions on things that you have no idea about, and then looking unprofessional. We don't
Yep.
work with the newbie inventor sort of idea. I think that was always the thing for me. Because even now when I'm reaching out, they're going to throw you a curveball,
Yep.
and
Yep.
it's you're going to stumble up, and you're going to have something that you're not prepared for. And I think that's the biggest fear of, like, in that conversation, in that moment, that dead space that
Oh.
froze up. I don't have an answer, So, and you can either do that, you can either freeze up, or you can adapt and roll out of it. I mean, just like to what Dana said, it, it's not unprofessional to be new at something. You know what I mean? If you're coming at it with you're respectful, you're courteous, you're polite, that's enough. You know what I mean? That's enough to be professional. You don't have
hmm.
to know everything, I think is my point there. But
That's
that in
well
the beginning,
put.
that was my concern too.
Thank you for that question,
Yeah.
Brandon.
Yeah.
For
Yeah,
sure.
that's well put. Can you say that again, Chad? What do you need to be? Professional, courteous, polite.
Courteous,
And polite.
polite.
I was gonna say, I forgot what I said already.
Though and to that question that he asks is it's okay to say, "Oh, that's a really good question. I'm not really sure about that. Can I get back in touch with you? Let me do a little
Well,
research on that
yeah,
and let me
yeah,
get
because
back in touch with you."
in our
It's
position, we have to
perfectly
say that
acceptable.
when we have to say that all the time, because if we're
Yeah.
reaching out for a client, we don't have them sitting next to us. So there's going to be things that they ask that we don't know.
Hmm.
And in a business world, that's 100% acceptable. I mean, you could oftentimes it's not. I mean, you want to answer as promptly as possible. Don't get me wrong, but it's not uncommon to get back to them next week, or if it's a Friday, I'll get you back to you Tuesday. So you have
Hmm.
this time frame to answer those questions, and that does you don't have to play that off as that you don't know. That's just part of the process, sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't think you have to have a partner, but if you have a partner, you say, let me ask my partner and think on that and get back to you. Or you can just say, let me think on that and get back to you. I'll definitely get back to you.
When
You
we
know?
were when I was an event student, I would say I'm not really sure about that. Talk to my team and I'll get back in touch with you. My
Yeah,
team was Eventbrite.
right.
That was
You
my
can say,
team.
I like
That
the
was
And
my
you
team. I
and
yeah.
like
you
the team. Your team could be
Yeah, for
anybody. It
sure.
could be your
Yep.
spouse. It
Yeah.
could
Could
be
be us.
us.
Yep.
I like
Yep.
that. And it
Mm-hmm.
sounds
Well,
very
here's
professional.
here's another one you got me thinking. I think another one of my biggest fears was reaching out to companies and they were going to tell me that my product already existed, that I didn't do a good
Hmm.
enough, a thorough enough market
Yeah.
research or patent
Yeah.
search. I was figured they were going to send back and be like, oh, well, this is right here. And I mean, that can happen. So I mean, that's an important
Mhm.
part of making sure that you have a good point of difference.
Right. Right. Let's see.
I'll tell you the day that I I was ready to start reaching out. And I kept procrastinating and procrastinating. And one day I remember exactly where I was standing at. And I just said to myself, what the heck are, well, I didn't say that, but I'll clean it up here. What the heck are you so scared about? What's the worst that can happen? I'm
Hmm.
saying this to myself, and I didn't have an answer. So what, I sound not professional, or I flub up my words, or I mess something up. So what? Every time I did it, I got a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. And I just picked up the phone and I started calling. I started calling. I started calling. And what I found out, and this is amazing, the people on the other end are pretty nice.
Hmm.
They're pretty nice. You're going to more than likely, probably a good percentage of the calls, you're going to be talking to someone in customer service or a gatekeeper in the office. And sometimes those gatekeepers are your best friends because especially if it's a company that it can be a very massive company that does, $100 million a year, but they only have an office with 12 people in it because they have plants everywhere, but like there's this core group of people. So sometimes that customer service or that secretary that answers, they're your best friends because they can
Hmm.
get your sales sheet to that person in that office right down the hall.
I'm glad you mentioned that. And I just want to say that one of the things that I say to inventors that makes it a little bit, one of the many things we can say that helps you guys is you're not calling a company. You're never
Mhm.
calling a company. If you
Mhm.
know this company has 500 employees or God, I see their products everywhere. Let's say it's a camping product. I see it in REI. I see it in all the sporting goods stores. I saw it at Walmart. Oh, this is a big company. You're not calling the company. You're calling a person within the company. And, Dana said it right now. Most people are pretty nice.
Mhm.
Some gatekeepers are pretty nice. Sometimes they're a little procedural and they're trying to push you. Hey,
Mhm.
why don't you send an email to info@xyzcompany.com? And you're like, and they'll say some of that.
And
But
I think the reason that they do that is they're just trying to protect the people that work there from unprofessional people. I think that's all it is. It's not that they don't want to see or necessarily that they or their team doesn't want to see your ideas. It's almost like, well, that's why you call them the gatekeeper. That they're that buffer in between you and all the other ones, you
Yeah.
know.
right.
Yeah.
But my main point is these are people like you and me. They're people that are working a job in a small company, medium-sized, or a corporation. They have problems just like you. They're overwhelmed with all their emails and all their tasks they need to do just like you. Most people in most companies these days, let's be honest, what's going on in the United States, they're working two or three people's jobs. That's very normal. You need to understand, you need to be sympathetic to that. So when they're really busy, and they're not getting back to you, you need to realize that. So they're dealing with a sense of overwhelm and all this stuff, and you're feeling a little overwhelmed. I got to reach out to these 30 companies. Wow, and I need to reach out to each of them like 5, 6 times, you know. But when you break it down and you realize you're talking to a person and it's not the company that you're talking to, it's a little less scary, no matter how big the company is. Um, so hopefully we're probably going to give a lot of other tips tonight too. So Serena wrote, right now, I just don't feel like I have the whole package together to present. So that's very common. Now, Serena has done this before, so she knows what she needs. So if she doesn't have the whole package, she's probably right. She probably doesn't have what she needs to present. But a lot of you, like, you purposely will or subconsciously will not get the whole package together because then you realize you have no excuse. Oh, well, I'll mess around with the prototype some more. Well, maybe I didn't cover everything in my PPA. Maybe I need to write one again. People will come up with endless excuses. So if you guys can, for those of you that have reached out before, type in your stories on some excuses you were making that you weren't, or type in excuses you still have. I'll only read your first name. It's not a big deal. We're all friends here. You can type in any excuse right now that you think you have for not reaching out yet. And some of them will be legitimate. Like, I don't have any marketing material. Okay, now you could reach out to companies and ask if they're open and say, I'm getting my marketing material together. I'll be sending you something within a couple months. I just want to make sure you're open. So you could do that with companies you plan to reach out to, companies you don't even plan to reach out to. Um, this issue of being fearful of reaching out was so great when before Stephen and I created a coaching program, created a gateway where we reach out for you. We did live seminars on the weekend. And we did all day Saturday, all day Sunday. It was grueling, like 8 hours each day. And we'd say, forget about your product for a second. Create some silly little candy idea. You know that guy with the spin pop where you press the button and it spins? He did the spin brush too, and all that. So we said, come up with some silly candy idea. And then just reach out to some companies. You have no intention of working on this thing. And you have no sell sheet. Just reach out. Like have a random idea in your head. Reach out to some candy companies. Get over that fear. So if you just want to reach out to some companies in your industry or not, I think in your industry is good, and ask if they're open to outside ideas, you could do that. So, and maybe it's ones that you don't even plan on reaching out to a current project. So if you mess it up, you're like, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be working on a project like that for like a year. You could do that if you wanted to. Let's
Here,
see.
Andrew, I got one from Richard.
Yeah.
That sometimes it's the fear of success, and like
Hmm.
I can see that. I mean, sometimes we're just kind of playing around. We're batting this idea around. We're making prototypes. I mean, nobody's really seen it. Okay, now somebody likes it. And now you have a deal. Okay, now it's real, and now it's time to show up. You know what I mean? It because the weight of it becomes much more. Now I got to deal with the contract. I got to, this is now's the part where I can really mess it up. You can
Yeah.
kind of feel that. I get that the fear of success. I mean, because now once it's time to go, it's time to go, and here we
Yeah, I think
go.
it, I think
You
that
know,
I think that fear of success thing has a lot to be with the way you see yourself. So the way you see yourself, if you see yourself operating at a higher level, just talking to a marketing person, hey, I have a product that maybe you don't say, hey, but I have a product. I looked at their product line. I looked at your product line, and I think it would fit in. I'd like to send you a sell sheet. It only take you like 30 seconds to look at. Like the confidence to feel that you have the right to say that, And so you want to envision yourself operating at that higher level because that is a higher level. An inventor that's filed a bunch of patents, made some prototypes, is not at your level if you reached out to one company. You are at a higher level than all those inventors that just made patents and did prototypes. You're at a higher level. You're in the game, you know, but you have to envision yourself being at that level and doing those things and, visualize that and then start doing it and go, I did it, and maybe you just called some companies you didn't even get in, or you sent some emails and they didn't even respond. That's a level, and then you take it up a level. But you got to envision yourself going, it's not that complicated to do what I need to do here. It's not going to be that scary, you know?
I want to add to that, Andrew. Just kind of another perspective because you and Stephen have been InventRight for 26 years. So if anybody that's watching this, you already are at a higher level than the vast majority of the people that are trying to do this. I mean,
Mhm.
you're already aware that you need to have marketing materials. You're aware you need a video. You're aware you need a PPA. There's people scrambling around asking questions on Facebook that don't have a clue which way to go. You're already at a higher level. So use that. You know what I mean? Use that confidence. When it could be worse because there's people making calls that you're doing that are probably way shakier, way more
Oh
unprofessional
yeah.
than what you're doing right now.
Oh, well, I'm glad you brought that up, Chad. That's amazing. I'm going to be honest with you guys. A percentage of other inventors make all you guys look bad. There are
Yeah.
companies that will not receive ideas because of the wacky inventors they've dealt with. I've give this example. I'm not going to give the company, but there is a company doing a very famous gardening infomercial type product, and they're not an infomercial company, but you back in the day, way back in the day, you see. Um, uh, and I saw him at the hardware show. He was like a marketing manager there. And I was at the hardware show and I said, "Hey, are you still accepting ideas from inventors?" And we just got chit-chatting about that. And he said, "Yeah, I do." And then I asked him about giving feedback. He's like, "I never give feedback." He's like, "I've had too many negative experiences where an inventor will start like arguing with me, going back and forth and back and forth." And he's like, "I will never, you're welcome to send me ideas, but I will never, because of his personal experience with inventors getting weird on him, I will never give feedback. I will still look at questions. It's a yes or no. And if they start like being unprofessional, if they just ask for feedback, he said that's fine. But he's like, I just don't give feedback. And then if they don't take no for an answer, they go, well, or because he would give feedback and they would not rebut it or say, well, we could fix that maybe, or this and that, but argue with him, full on argue with him. And there's a lot of other examples. What are other things that inventors do that piss companies off? Long rambling emails, 3-page emails. I thought about it. My family likes it, blah, blah, blah. Sell sheets that suck most of the time. Like I said, I think I've said this on sessions before. When I see sell sheets from inventors outside of InventRight,
You can tell.
90% of the time
Yeah,
they're not good
you can
enough.
tell.
90% of the time they are not good enough. And so that's what people love about getting sell sheets from InventRight students or through the Gateway program, because they're like, I always get to understand what the product is, like within 10 seconds, 15 seconds.
And we can always
So,
tell when someone submits for Gateway who has been a former InventRight student or has been
Yeah.
watching videos. It's clear as
yeah,
day.
Yeah.
You can
yeah.
tell.
And so, so getting to the point why you guys shouldn't be fearful. Now, some of you are students of ours or clients of ours, and some of you are just fans of ours, and you're watching enough of our YouTube show where you're like, I can do this. I can be professional. So just knowing, I'm going to be honest, the bar is really low on what other inventors do and how they approach companies. You're already up here. If you don't have a long rambling email, you don't argue with them, you have conversations with them, and you have a good marketing piece that makes it really easy for them to go, I understand what this product is, you know? And you did your research where they're not looking at it and going, I've seen like 20 of these. Did they not do their research? But you do those things. You're even if you're stuttering on the phone, you're automatically up here where all the other inventors are here.
Well, and I also think, to add to that, I think that for every one of us that sends out a professional sell sheet or a professional email, in turn is making it easier for every other one of us. Every other person that follows you,
Absolutely.
everyone that's doing it right now, the more people that are
Right.
reaching out in a professional way with clear marketing materials is making all of these companies more open and acceptable to reviewing outside ideas. It's just a fact. I mean,
Thank you, Chad. So I'm going to take this question from our YouTube stream. UBG Creation says, I was afraid that they would ask me all kinds of details, but I've found they do not. They always want, they want to just see the product and then share with their team. I've
Yeah.
never had any hard questions up front. So that's another thing one thing that will help you get over it. You're calling them, you're asking permission to send the marketing materials, which if you've done a good job are pretty clear. So to this thought that you got to get on the phone and pitch. Okay, if you want to give a 1 sentence benefit statement that sounds good, great, but you got to pitch or they're going to ask you 20 questions. That's not the way it works. That's not the way we approach it. You're asking permission to send the marketing that makes it really clear. Now, once they see the marketing, they might have some questions, which is a good thing because it shows there's a little bit of interest there. That's a great thing. But there's not going to be anything that you can't at least touch upon or tell them you'll get back to after seeing the marketing materials. But trying to describe your invention over the phone is like trying to describe how to tie your shoelaces over the phone. Have you ever heard that marketing thing? Don't try to describe to somebody how to tie. Could you describe to somebody how to tie your shoelaces over the phone?
I
Well,
never
you
thought
take
about
the
that. That's
right
pretty
one
funny.
and then you say,
Yeah.
and so it's like, oh crap, I'm not going to be able to explain my invention very well because I'm not a salesperson or this or that. The sell sheet or the video, that's your salesperson, not you. You're just getting into a friendly conversation after they've already shown a little interest. Doesn't mean you're going to close the deal. So that should really get rid of, like as UBG Creations said on YouTube, that should get rid of a lot of those fears. Like, oh, they're gonna, because if you kind of do what if I call it what ifing yourself to death. What if they say this? What if they say that? What if? You'll what if yourself into oblivion and you'll just not call anybody. Now, when we're training our students or Dana and Chad, when we're reaching out under Gateway, we know how to answer those questions, you know? So I'm not saying there's not a question you can't answer, but you can say, that's a good question. Let me think on that. Let me get
Well,
back to my team and get back to you
Well,
on that.
And I'll even say in the beginning, I try to avoid overly specific questions in the very beginning. I don't want to give them some information that's going to give them a mindset, give them an idea of the product that it's not. I would rather those marketing materials that we work so hard for speak for themselves,
Mhm.
for sure.
Rex wrote he's stuck writing a great sell sheet. Well, that's legit, Rex. Rex is on LinkedIn. Thanks for listening to us and watching us on LinkedIn, Rex. That's legit. You should be concerned about that. So we're talking about things that people worry about that they shouldn't worry about. Now, that's one thing you should worry about. You should worry that your marketing's not good enough. Are you going to reach out to 20, 30 companies and then realize later everybody's confused? They don't know what the hell your product is because you did a crappy job with marketing and you were so arrogant not to confirm that it was easy for people to understand? That's arrogance. Don't be arrogant. You understand your product. You may have been living with your product for 6 weeks, 6 months, or 6 years. You know your product. So inventors, when they do marketing, sometimes like they're a couple steps ahead, and it's like, no, it needs to make sense for somebody barely paying attention and looking at it for the first time, not all the advanced, like, oh, the second and third question is this or that. But if a customer saw it, they would get it right away. So a lot of you do poor marketing because of that. So you should worry about your marketing not good enough.
And a good test for that is to show somebody that, I mean, not just show it around, but show somebody that doesn't know your product, and if they see if they get it in 5 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, and I share that on almost every meeting.
Yeah, for sure.
Put it on your computer, stand behind your computer.
Haven't we done, I mean, there's got to be videos on YouTube about sell sheets, right? We've done some, I'm sure. And out of that 1,000 videos.
The problem is we can't show some of the best because there are students or our clients and we can't put that up, and occasionally we'll get permission. And I don't think we put all the best stuff up, but we have videos on the basics.
It's still a general idea of what a sell sheet should look like. It's still up there somewhere, and I think it is on our website. I think so. We were talking about the fears too, and we may have a fear of this will happen and that'll happen. I didn't have a fear of what will happen. I have had a fear of what won't happen if I don't get this product in front of people. I had visions of me sitting on my front porch when I'm 90 years old in my rocking chair saying, what was I so scared of? What was I so scared of? Like, and again, I always have to ask myself, no matter what I'm doing, that I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? You're not going to die. So if they say, don't ever call me back, screw you. Well, then it's not a company you want to work with anyway.
Right.
And yeah, so I was more scared of what wouldn't happen if I didn't start to reach out to companies. One thing I do know is that absolutely you will, if you want a license and that's your goal, that's what we focus on. If you do not start to reach out to companies, it will not happen. It won't happen.
Yeah, definitely.
That scared me more than reaching out to people and starting to do that.
Say if they yell at me and tell me never to call back, I'm calling back tomorrow.
I've only ever had one person, and I don't know how many hundreds, 1,000 calls. I don't know. We don't keep track of how many calls we make because there's a lot. I had one person that was not very nice to me, but he kept me on the phone for like 15 minutes telling me why my product wouldn't work. But he gave me, and he wasn't like yelling at me, or he was just, do you know how much? And he gave, while he was telling me this, I was taking notes because he was giving me all this information, and I thanked him, and maybe he was having a bad day. But I've never had anybody be rude to me or nasty to me. I've had people be short. That's one thing that I think that Brad and Chad and Claudia and I, when we're on the phone with somebody, you have to read that other person on the phone.
Yeah, for sure.
And really respect their time. When I get on the phone with somebody, my phone conversations are, unless they want to take it longer, I'm letting them lead the dance. They're going to lead the conversation.
Yeah, their tone will set the pace. Yeah. You can tell. You can sense that sense of urgency.
What would you say that, let's say typical, not the extremes, not super short, super long. What's typical? How long is that when you get somebody on the phone?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay.
What do you think, Chad?
And is that less scary to everybody?
To get in, or just
that's
to
less
ask
scary.
the
It's only 2 minutes.
Like, yeah, I mean, I'd say just a few minutes, especially if it's something that they're aware of and that they're open to. Yeah, I mean, that conversation moves pretty quick. I try to beat my own record sometimes. I got into a company in 1 minute and 37 seconds, and that included ring time. I've been keeping track.
Nice.
Well, and then you may, though, this has happened to me twice since Gateway, that I got on the phone with they were two different companies. They were both owners of the company. and they had me on the phone for an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 10 minutes.
Owners
They
like to
were
talk.
just talking and telling stories, and I don't know. They wanted to talk, and what am I going to do? Like, hang up? Listen, buddy, you talk my ear off now. They were super nice and talking to me about the manufacturing and about this and about that and everything. And again, it was a world of knowledge
You
that
know,
they're
I think
sharing with
yeah, I like that you said that, Dana, because you're establishing a relationship. That's very
me.
extreme, of course, but
Yeah, that
I think your mindset to you're not there to use that person one time and then you're done.
Mhm.
So this is another way that it makes it less fearful and you'll feel productive. So every time somebody says no, to a particular product after reviewing it, you didn't get rejected. You just made a connection because they're probably going to look at another one and another one, you know? And so that should also be your mindset when you get, no, we're not open to looking at ideas. Great. I don't have to reach out to that company again. So when I work on another dog toy, because I like doing dog toys or whatever your area is, I'll put that on my list. I won't reach out to them, right? So but if you know that when you get a no, it was a no to that product, but now you got another product in that space, which if you're very creative, you will come up with another one. I made a relationship. Wow, this guy was pretty easy. And you'll ask him again if he can send, or I'll just send it depending on the person. So that's very encouraging. So sometimes people are so focused on their current invention, they don't realize they're laying the groundwork for sending other ideas to those same
Mhm.
people. And
Mhm.
yeah, people change in corporate America, but some of them will stick around for 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Other ones, you might find 6 months later or a year later they're not there anymore, but a lot of them will still
I
be.
I have a good story about making relationships, and that's what you're making. You're making relationships so that person trusts you and says, "Yes, send me over your product idea. I want to see it." That's kind of a great mindset to be in. But there's one story I have where when I was pitching my shower caddy, when I was reaching out to companies, I got into a very small company and I made a connection with the guy over at the company. His name was Brian. And and I would follow him on LinkedIn and because that's how we connect people. You make relationships on LinkedIn. People want to work with people they know, like, and trust. So I built up this relationship with him. So let's fast forward now 7 years. He works for a massively huge company. So I am so glad that I created that relationship when this person was over here, because now he's in this very large company that I can get into because I had that relationship over here when he was in a smaller company.
Yeah,
All
and
about relationships.
I think that shows that Dana's in it for the long haul. And
Mhm.
so instead of looking at it as my invention, my invention, my invention, you look at yourself as a professional inventor, even if you fake it till you make it, even if you don't feel like you're there yet,
Mhm.
and you do things that are professional. And the other part, this is big. We haven't discussed this. We got some more questions we'll
I
definitely
got to
get
answer
to
one of them
before we.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Yeah,
We'll
there's a
let
few
you
of them I
pick
would answer.
one. We'll let you pick some questions, guys. Now you made me lose my train of thought.
Sorry.
Um,
Sorry.
good, Chad. Go with your question. I'll come
No,
back to
I
it.
just I wanted to respond to Amanda's question. She said, "What can actually be accomplished in a 2 minute call? What is that exchange like?" Okay, so when when everybody understands the game, that's when it can happen really quickly. Hi, my name's Chad. I'm calling to find out if blank company is open to reviewing products from outside ideas. I have a new product that I think would be a great fit for your brand. I'm looking to send over some marketing materials and see if this might be something that's in your wheelhouse. Oh yeah, we're open to new ideas. We'd be happy to check it out and offer feedback. Here's the email address. Okay,
Yep.
perfect. I'll send that over right now. That wasn't even 2 minutes.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it's
That's how,
not.
yeah.
That happens all the time. As long as everyone understands the game, yes, they're open. Like they've experienced inventors before. They understand what licensing is. I mean, if you have to go and explain that, which that'll happen a lot too, those calls can drag out and you have to have something ready to say for that. But if everybody understands the assignment, it can just go.
Hmm.
Well,
Especially if they're in an industry that reviews products a lot too.
this is a question I want Dana and Chad to answer, and I'm sure you've had this issue too. So Jim wrote, he's on LinkedIn. Thanks for watching the stream on LinkedIn, Jim. Just not consistent. I'll start, then never double back and continue. Thanks, thank, thanks, thank you for always being there. So, thanks for the info and always being there. So that is very common. People do get started and then they give up. And so I would if anybody has had that experience, if you could type it into the chat, that would be great. If you're still there, what do you guys have to say to somebody that has been making an effort? They're not so fearful, they haven't been making no effort, and they do it so sporadically or have just given up. What do you have to say about consistency and discipline? And that sounds boring, right, guys? The
No,
consistency,
it's true.
discipline. Who wants that? I'm a creative inventor,
Who
right?
wants,
But
I
Yeah.
just, my mind goes to who wants to do all this work and make it 90% and then drop the ball on that last 10? I mean,
Yeah.
you did all of
Yeah.
this stuff already. What? Because you can get to a point where you got into a company, you've sent out the sell sheet. It's been a month or two. They haven't heard back from them. They must not like it. Follow up is critical. I mean, we've talked about that so many
Mhm.
times in interviews. I
Mhm.
won't get into all that, but I mean, why give up now? You did all the hard work.
isn't it normal, like pretty typical? Paul was telling me when he looks at the records for the outreach for Gateway. I mean, like 4 to 6 times following up is normal before they get
That's
back to you,
normal.
right? Isn't it
Yeah,
normal?
on average, I'd probably say between 2 and 3, but it's
Right.
not uncommon for us to do 4 to 6. And then once we get up around that 6 mark, we're like, okay,
You
we're
start
gonna
looking
find
at other
we have to
options.
find another
Yeah.
contact.
Yep.
But it's so easy for, first of all, whoever asked that question, good for you. You know, the first thing that we have to do is realize where the problem is. The problem is I'm procrastinating. The problem is I can't stay focused. The problem is, I'm not committed or I'm not disciplined enough. So now you know what the problem is. So how do you fix the problem? Well, I'll share what I did. The reaching out part, I'm going to be on. I'm really used to doing it now, but when I was first reaching out, it was the most unfun part of the whole process, the most scary part of the whole process. And I kind of looked at my schedule, like, what do? I go to work all day, I come home, make dinner, clean up the dishes, do some laundry. And then I was sitting my butt on the couch watching nonsense TV. And so I said, for what I was going to do, I was going to take 1 hour a day and focus on what I needed to do, reaching out, finding emails, sending emails, calling people, LinkedIn. Sometimes calling people is a little bit hard if you got to call them during their business hours, of course. And I disciplined myself to do that. Now I'm real scattered. I'm like shiny, shiny, shiny all over the place, typical inventor, right? And so I had to actually clear off my desk, clean slate, clear it off, had my paper in front of me, my computer in front of me, and that was it. No phone, no TV, no nothing. And I forced myself discipline to do that every single day for just 1 hour. Now, if you can't do an hour, do a half an hour. But what I found is that 1 hour would turn into 2 hours or 3 hours because I was in the groove. I was in the groove. And once I started doing it, and then little by little, I would get these little dings, a little response here, a little response there. And that would, like pep me up a little bit. And then I would want to do it again. And that's how, because you know what, we can talk about it, we can think about it, we can read about it, but until we put it into action, nothing is going to happen. And if I know I wasn't disciplined and I had to force myself to be disciplined, I stopped watching TV. I worked on my computer for an hour every day.
Yeah, people. Thank you, Dana. People like Teresa wrote this in, and you guys might have similar things. And thank you, Teresa, for sharing this. Um, I want to use this as an example. Teresa said, I had someone respond last week and tell me that they have in-house staff to create their products and they don't accept from outside ideas
Mhm.
from outside the company. I wasn't sure how to respond, so I thanked them and said, if anything changes, let me know. Did I handle it right? Of
Yep.
course you handled it right.
Yep,
I
yep,
think
absolutely.
sometimes inventors, they question themselves too much. I mean, if they said they don't receive ideas from the outside, they only use their internal product developers, that's how it is. But I found that people have a hard time accepting a no. because that's a no. And that's normal. And companies will say that. That's a normal thing for companies to say. But when people are new to something and they're not certain and they put themselves out there, they get thrown off by the littlest things. Because to me, it's completely logical of they said they're not open. No problem, they're not open. But she's still questioning, did she handle it right? And she shouldn't. So a lot of licensing, well, a lot of licensing is common sense. But the common sense when I talk to a lot of people, they're like, well, this is how you handle it, right? I'm like, no, not good common sense. But once you have the common sense of a professional inventor that does licensing, you will get into that vibe and you will have it. So a lot of what people assume is, well, for instance, most people that come up with an idea, it's common sense. I came up with an idea. First thing I do is I give some patent attorney $12,000. No, you made the wrong assumption. But once you understand the basics, you will have common sense. But so Teresa, thank you for sharing that. I think there's a lot of little things that throw people off.
Even at this level, when we're reaching out, I mean, there's been a couple times where they've left kind of an open tone when they say that they do their development in-house, where I've been able to get around that and had them at least review the idea. There's been a couple times, but that is what do you call it? That's few and far between, because the majority of the time, if they clearly say we do not review outside so that's a two-part answer, okay? We do not review outside ideas, and we do our development in-house. Now, if they just said they do their development in-house, I'd say something like, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem. You're not open to reviewing any innovation from." Well, that sometimes you'll get that. Like, well, not necessarily, but if they specifically state that they don't review outside ideas, you just say, like she said, "Thank you," and you move on.
Well, I need to share something that happened to me last week. So I sent a LinkedIn message to a handful of people in this company. One of them was the CEO of this company. And then I sent, to some other people. And then I also reached out on their, contact us on their website, which I do that because sometimes you'll get in that way. You'll get, people will answer. But I don't always rely on that contact us page. That's just something that I did. So I got a message back from the CEO of the company. He said, normally we do not, look at outside ideas, but this sounds interesting. I had the one benefit. And he said, we chatted back and forth, and he said, I'll be happy to look at the sell sheet. The same day he told me he'd be happy to look at the sell sheet, that I got an email from customer support, probably from my online, contact us page on their website, saying they don't look at outside ideas. So sometimes we have to look at the source, because I've had that happen where customer service is just trained to say no outside ideas. But then somebody over here at the company doesn't know that customer service is saying that, and they are open. Does it happen all the time? Absolutely not. But can it happen? Absolutely.
I'm glad that we're both addressing getting started, and we're also addressing the things that stop people in their tracks.
Yeah.
So that was a great tip that Dana just gave. She gave a lot of great tips, but one great tip was basically don't trust the customer service people when they say they're not open. Don't trust them pretty much ever. Get confirmation, talk to somebody, and if they also say, no, we're not open. Is there any case in which you trust the customer service people that they're not open? Smaller company, maybe? No.
Well, I don't know. I would say in a smaller company, yeah. Like, I mean, and customer service, I mean, that's got a, there's the customer service title, but then you also, like Dana said earlier, you might have an office that has 12 people in it, and this whoever the receptionist is, they know that. They lean over and ask so and so, or they've been asked that before. So there are certain times when, I mean, you can tell sometimes they're like, well, I'm not really sure, or we haven't done that before, or something. That doesn't mean that they don't, but if they explicitly say that they don't, most of the time they don't.
Well, and when you call an 800 number, almost every company has an 800 number. Not every company has an 800 number, because they don't want. In fact, the one time I called a company and he said, we're not going to answer our phone because we get too many spams. It was a funny way. He said, text us.
Well, and
he said, text us at this number, because spammy people don't text, I guess. But if there's
they do now.
Yeah, really. There's 1-800 numbers, which you're probably going to get a customer service person. That customer service, customer support, they're helping the customer. We always call the corporate telephone number. If we can find it, we want the corporate telephone number. And then if you're talking to somebody in the office and they sound like they know what they're talking about, they're definitely not open. If they're iffy about it, my rule of thumb is if I get 3, we're not open
Right.
from 3 different people in the company, then I'm going to assume they're not open.
And I
So
like what you said about the CEO too, because when you're talking to that, like CEOs and owners, those are your wild cards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just because every person in the company knows that they don't look at outside ideas, like you said, they don't have to answer to anybody. So like, oh,
Right.
this sounds interesting. There is no they're not taking any risk of their job or anything like that to look at your idea. You know what I mean? Everyone else below that has to answer to someone. So CEOs and owners, those are your wild cards. Like you said,
Yeah.
they'll probably still take a look. Like,
so
Yeah.
what do you what do you how do you respond, Chad and Dana, to an inventor that is being afraid of making calls? Like, so I'm going to give you this fictitious scenario. So they're reaching out, doing some LinkedIn messages and doing nothing but emails for an entire year and not getting results because they're afraid of making phone calls. Just before you answer that question, the methods that we use are LinkedIn, email, sometimes social media managers on Instagram, Facebook, whatever. You reach out to them, a direct message, nothing public. That's not the typical. Sometimes we'll be like, what the hell? We'll use the contact page, like Dana said, once in a blue moon. I can't even do all my fingers here. I can't get my fingers up. That's it. And then phone calls. So phone calls, contact page, social media, LinkedIn, email. Those are all ways, and some of y'all just completely avoid making that call no matter what. Well, I'm working, I can't do that. I could never do that at my lunch or but you got to realize that some of you are on East Coast or West Coast, you could shift. There's nobody here that can't make a phone call, even if it's just to leave a voicemail on the weekend.
I gotta tell
Nobody
you,
here.
I don't want to hear the I'm working excuse. Do you remember when I started
Yeah,
here?
I don't want to hear
When
that
I
either.
started here, I was doing another
Listen,
job,
yeah.
and I was calling companies from a diesel front end loader. I was loading rocks and stuff, so I would literally have to hold the window from vibrating so I could make calls. I'd be in the loader making calls in between loading
Yeah.
trucks and stuff like that, and that's how I started this job. So I don't want to
Yeah.
hear it. I'm working. Like,
Yeah, that's how I was
Yeah.
too. I was running my own business when I was calling companies and I would find the time, and this is the thing. It's not, we already said, it's not a 2 minute, it's not a 15, 20 minute, 30-minute conversation. It's a 2 or 3 minute conversation. It's
But
never,
Dana, some people are afraid of just sending an email or a LinkedIn message. What would
yeah.
you say to those folks? What's going to happen? What would be the worst case scenario?
Well, the
that's the
worst case
easy part.
scenario is that they're not gonna respond. But I can tell you, if you send, this is a numbers game. If you send out enough emails and you're saying all the right things in the email, my emails are like I don't know, 3 sentences long. How long are your emails? If you send emails, Brad, and I know you have to send emails sometimes. How long?
Yeah.
Chad. She does this all the time.
We got Brad on our team too. She
Or
does all the
Chad, I'm
time.
sorry, Chad. I know Brad and
There's
Chad.
Brad and Chad. This happens a
I
lot.
know Chad.
Yeah,
Hey,
mine
you.
typically
Hey,
aren't more than 3 or 4 sentences.
3 or 4 sentences.
Yeah,
There's
it
nothing,
doesn't
and
take
there's
much.
nothing.
You're not asking a lot.
There's nothing worse than getting. The other day somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn and sent me 2 paragraphs, and it's like, okay, she didn't even tell me what she wanted.
Right.
Like, and I wrote back and said, what do you want? Like, tell me what you want. Why
What
are
do you want
reaching
from
out?
me? Yeah.
What do you want?
Tell
And
me what you
I
want.
usually always end my sentences or my, it's always with a question mark. I learned that in some sales things or whatever, not like we're selling, but
I kind of do that too. Like I said at the end of it, like I'll say my spiel. I said, "So would you be open to reviewing this product?" Question mark.
Question mark.
That's the one thing that you have to answer. That just leave them
Yeah.
one question.
Yeah.
Like that's good.
Yeah.
That's
And
good
make
point.
it really easy. In fact, the other day I pitched a product to a company for a client, and this is a funny one. Well, first of all, I reached out to him. I called his phone, I called his office phone, got his extension because they had a dial by name directory, left a voicemail, hit him up on LinkedIn and hit him up on email, like within probably half an hour. And he got back to me on an email. He said, "Thank you so much for the phone call and the LinkedIn message and the email. Yes, we're open." He got the sell sheet. He came back and he said, "No, we're not open to this product." And it was vague. Like I didn't quite understand. You're not open, but you're open, but you're not. I don't know. The conversation was just not real clear. So to make it easy for him, I said, "Hi, whoever, can you be a little bit more clear? A, you're not open to this product, or B, you're not open to products at all, seeing new products at all." I gave him multiple choice, A or B. And he said A, which meant I'm open to.
Nice. I love that.
I
I
gave him
literally only has to type A.
That's all he did too. He
Yeah.
just typed A.
I love that. I love
I
that.
think
Yeah.
my
No,
only
let's
closing
go with that.
my only closing advice, I guess, is like, you all know what you're supposed to be doing. Don't talk about it. Be about it. Do it.
Be
You already know what you're
about
supposed to be
it,
doing.
yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
So, I think we got about 3 or 4 minutes left here, and I want to talk about this. Here's what you guys need to accept if you're going to do this licensing thing, right? This thing that we've been doing for 26 years, and maybe you've been doing for weeks or months or years or more. You need to accept that the ideation, the creation of your idea is maybe 10 or 15% of the process. That's it. Now, you can't license a terrible idea, but if you don't do the rest of it, if you don't do the sell sheet, if you don't do your research, if you don't do the PPA, if you don't do all these things, if you don't make your hit list of companies, nothing will happen. So 85% of this process is nothing to do with it doesn't have nothing to do with your idea. It's not just about coming up with the idea. So yeah, pat yourself on the back for being so unique and so different, having a skill that a lot of these people in corporations don't have. They don't have your creativity. They don't know how to think outside the box. Their product developers come up with the same crap forever. Some of them not, but some of them, you have a very special skill. And I'm going to say it this way, but it's not enough. If you don't do the rest of it, nothing will happen. And you could get, like Dana said, or Chad said, you can get 90% there if you don't do the outreach. All of it was just playing with yourself. It was just a waste. It was a complete, utter waste of time. So accepting that the outreach is a very big part of this process is something you have to do. And I think people subconsciously resist spending the time and admitting that the idea is a very small part of it, important part of it. You have a skill very few other people have. You're special, but it's not enough. If you don't reach out and you go in front of people. And so I think that's why our Gateway program is popular, but we're here to encourage you guys to do it yourself. If you don't want to, Gateway can do it. But if you're going to do it yourself, you have to get to that point where you're like, very little about the idea. It's about all the rest of the stuff. There's the lights turned off on me. So, no, but
Pay that power bill, Andrew.
Yeah,
really.
But I mean, I think that's really important because then you're thinking like, well, I remember what Andrew said, like write it down. The idea is not enough. I have to do the outreach. Idea is not enough. Have to do outreach. Put it on your desk. Put a reminder on your phone. Nothing will happen until you reach out.
Yeah.
And
I think a big thing is that if and as we know that this is all about relationships, that if you can kind of flip your mind around and say, let's forget about the product right now, let's just start to make relationships. Let's just start to, and then it'll kind of, evolve from that.
Anybody can do this, guys. And I've never really put it this way before. Dana had a tuxedo shop before this. Chad was a contractor. Were you professional inventors your entire life? You had training from invent, right? Yes.
Didn't even know about licensing until I started.
You were an inventors, but you weren't professional
know.
inventors.
I didn't know anything about licensing until YouTube or InventRight just
you guys can do this.
Popped up on my screen.
And the other thing that I'm going to say is work ethic. Yeah, okay, we make licensing seem easy. It is easy compared to running a business. Running a business is brutal. To launch a product, raise all that money, you need to make 1,000 times the calls you need to do with licensing. That doesn't mean that licensing is a piece of cake. It means it's easier, it's less risky. You don't have to take all that risk. Those are beautiful things, but it doesn't mean you're not going to have to make any effort. It doesn't mean you can just come up with ideas and not do anything else, you know? So, and that's hard to accept for a creative person. It's more exciting. Let's come up with another idea, another idea, another idea. And if that makes you happy, do it. But you're not a pro until you reach out to your first company. And you're not a pro but you're in the game when you reach out to the first company. You've been reaching out for 6, 8, 10 months. Now you're a pro, you know? So if you want to be a pro, be a pro. And if you don't want to be a pro, you can do Gateway if you want, and we'll reach out for you. But it's more cost effective for you to do it yourself. And you guys can do it. For 26 years, InventRight has been encouraging inventors to do this. That's what our company is all about, you know? But you got to figure out where you're at with things. And you can do it. You can totally do it. Anybody can do this. Anybody can do this. Dana, do you have anything you want to say in closing?
I just real quick, there was a question on here that I think people are always curious about. Is there a best time of day to make calls? No. Is there a best day? No. I don't. We make calls Monday through Friday during their business hours, right, Chad?
Yep.
I don't look at the time. I just look at the time to make sure they're in the right time zone. That's all. It doesn't matter to me, and it doesn't matter anymore.
I think my last thing touches on what Michelle said earlier. When I read it, it said, "I feel like I'm running out of time." We all are. You know what I mean? So every person looking at this, we're all running out of time. So just stop.
Yeah.
You know,
think about the regrets you'll have if you don't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right, guys.
right,
thank you, Dana. Thank you, Chad. Everybody on
Thank
LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook, thanks for the great questions. Everybody here on Zoom, thank you for the great questions. There are way more questions that we could answer. I think we did a good job staying on topic. Hopefully you guys, if you're already reaching out, you're a little bit more encouraged. If you haven't been reaching out at all, and it's your first time, you know, it's going to give you a shot in the arm to get going. And if you've been doing some but not enough, hopefully it motivated you to do more. So I want to remind everybody to take care and keep inventing. And we'll catch up with you guys next time. See ya. Bye.
See you later.